Hey there, if you're a beginner looking to start your very first home garden, you are in the exact right place. Welcome to this Beginner's Guide Explainer. Today, we are absolutely going to save you from years of back pain, frustrating pest invasions, and literally hundreds of wasted dollars. We're exploring the ultimate foundational question. When you're building a raised garden bed, should you go with the standard 17-inch height, or should you upgrade to the premium 32-inch height? Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to break this down logically so you know exactly what to expect. First, we'll look at the beginner's foundation, then compare the 17-inch solution with the 32-inch premium experience. After that, we'll cover some crucial pro tips. And finally, we'll help you make your choice. Section 1, the beginner's foundation. Let's make sure we get those basics right. So, our insights today come from a gardener with over 10 years of experience getting their hands dirty across some pretty wild US climates. And their biggest lesson? Well, it's that height is not just an aesthetic choice, it's a structural commitment. You know, gardening really is a marathon, not a sprint. To kind of shatter this misconception that any old box of dirt will do, our author actually shared a rough early failure. They started out using these cheap 6-inch wooden frames purely to save a few bucks. And the result? Complete disaster. Within 3 years, they were constantly kneeling in the mud, fighting off hungry rabbits, and replacing timber that had completely rotted away. Getting that foundation right in year one is absolutely critical to your long-term success. Which brings us to the central dilemma of this whole explainer: balancing your budget against the health of your back. You're basically weighing the initial financial cost of setting up your garden against a decade of potential physical strain on your knees and lower back. It's a classic trade-off, right? But as you'll see, once we break down the reality of each option, the right choice for you is going to become remarkably clear. Moving on to Section 2, the 17-inch solution. This is widely considered the pragmatic middle ground, and it's actually the current industry standard. Now, as a beginner, you might be wondering, is 17 inches actually enough space for my plant's roots? Well, check out this number, 12 to 15 inches. That is the soil depth utilized by even the absolute heavy hitters in your garden. Think large heirloom tomatoes, thick peppers, heavy kale. So a 17-inch bed gives them that critical depth plus a little buffer zone. More importantly, it gives root crops like carrots the perfect runway to grow straight down without hitting the hard-packed, terrible clay we usually find hiding under our suburban lawns. So the crucial point here is soil economy. Because reality check for beginners, filling a garden bed is actually often way more expensive than buying the frame itself. Since a 17-inch bed needs less filler volume, about 11 cubic feet for a 4x4 area, you can take those savings and invest them into premium amendments. We're talking the really good stuff like worm castings and biochar to supercharge your plants. Plus, these lower beds are structurally highly stable and honestly super kid-friendly since the little ones can easily reach right in. All right, Section 3, the 32-inch premium experience. What if you want to take things to the absolute next level? The biggest benefit of this height is what our author brilliantly calls eliminating the gardening tax on your body. Think about the physical toll of bending over every single day for 10 years. It adds up. At 32 inches, which is about waist high, you can weed, prune, and harvest your vegetables while standing completely upright or even just sitting comfortably on a stool. It makes the daily tasks of gardening so accessible and enjoyable, even on those days when your body feels tired and you'd normally just skip going outside. It also acts as a literal fortress. I mean, a 17-inch bed is barely a hurdle for a motivated rabbit, but a 32-inch bed? Most small critters like groundhogs won't even attempt to jump into a box that high. On top of that, being so high off the ground keeps your plants above the ground level weed seed rain blowing across your lawn, which drastically cuts down the hours you'll spend pulling unwanted grass from your pristine garden soil. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact technical trade-offs side by side. On the physical side, you're trading kneeling for comfortable standing. But look at the soil volume. It nearly doubles from 11 to a massive 21 cubic feet, which heavily impacts the wallet. But in return for that extra cost, your pest protection jumps from moderate to high, and your drainage becomes top-notch. This gives you a perfect mental snapshot of what you're actually trading off. Next up, Section 4, Pro Tips. Let's look at a decade of mistakes so you don't have to make them. Okay, to avoid early mistakes, you need to know this slightly intimidating sounding word, hugelkultur. It sounds incredibly complex, but the concept is brilliantly simple. The authors shared this disastrous soil sinkhole story where they filled their very first 32-inch bed entirely with expensive bagged potting mix. Well, soil compresses, right? It settled a massive 6 inches in just 1 month. Hugelkultur is the permanent fix. You just fill the bottom 50% of your tall bed with organic matter like logs, sticks, and dried leaves. It saves you tons of money on soil and slowly breaks down over the years into a rich, deep nutrient reservoir for your plants. Let's move to and see how this builds into 3 massive pitfalls you absolutely must avoid when building taller beds. First, avoid the soil sinkhole. Use hugelkultur. Second, avoid the material trap. The weight of wet soil in a 32-inch bed is literally immense. If you use thin metal or cheap, untreated pine, the walls will bow outward and eventually snap. You must use thick 2-inch cedar or high-quality galvanized steel. Third, plan for your climate. Tall beds evaporate water much faster through their exposed sidewalls. If you live in a hot zone, you absolutely have to commit to a thick layer of top mulch to retain moisture. Regardless of whether you build short or tall, always follow a strict structural rule. The 4-foot rule of thumb. Never go wider than 4 feet. Why? Because you need to be able to comfortably reach the center without stepping into the bed and compacting that beautiful, airy soil you just worked so hard to build. For 17-inch beds, a standard 4 by 8-foot rectangle works great. But for 32-inch beds, you should really look into U-shapes or L-shapes so you have maximum reachability from all sides. Finally, Section 5, your choice. Let's shift the focus directly back to you, your lifestyle, and your budget to find your best fit. Here's the final verdict on who each bed is really for. The 17-inch bed? It's absolutely perfect for healthy beginners, families who want their young kids to see and interact with the plants, or anyone trying to fill a large backyard plot without breaking the bank. On the flip side, the 32-inch bed is the ultimate choice for seniors, urban gardeners with small concrete footprints, or anyone specifically seeking a low-impact physical activity. Remember, the true expert isn't the person with the tallest, most expensive bed. It's the person who builds a garden that doesn't break their bank or their back over 10 years. So, what does this all mean? I'll leave you with this final, provocative question. Which garden will you build to enjoy for the next 10 years? Take a moment, think about your physical space, your budget, and most importantly, how you want your body to feel after a beautiful Sunday afternoon harvest. Lay your foundation wisely, get those hands dirty, and start building today. Thanks for joining me for this Beginner's Guide Explainer, and we'll see you on the next one.